Hi, my name's James Alexander, and I am the host of the Podport 100 podcast, brought to you by LaunchPod Studios and Podicon. Podicon have created an entirely new metric for measuring the success of podcasts, not only taking into account downloads and listens, but now including things like hashtags related to your show and social media activity across a whole plethora of platforms. What it does is, in turn, it creates a chart that is really representative of what is going on right now in the world of podcasting. I feel very lucky to be in the position that I'm in, as I will be hosting this show, taking you on a journey, speaking to all of the best podcasters across all of the charts worldwide, and delving a little deeper into their podcast journey. Okay, so I mean, we're covering stuff. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me, or me joining you, actually. It's 11 p.m. here in London. Do you guys each just want to introduce yourselves as individuals, and we'll get right to it?
Sure. I'm Ben Meiselas. I'm the oldest brother in Midas Touch. When I'm not doing Midas Touch, I am a lawyer.
My name's Brett Meiselas. I'm the middle brother, Midas Touch, so it's fitting I'll go second here for the introductions. Co-founded Midas Touch with my brothers. My background's in film and TV before kind of fell into this.
I'm Jordy. I'm the youngest. I share the same name with my brothers, Meiselas.
And the fan favorite?
Apparently. No. The last 78 years before we started Midas, I was in marketing and advertising over in New York.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me. We've been doing this show really only for the past couple of weeks, and it seems an opportune moment to explain to you and to the people listening exactly what the Podport 100 is and why it's relevant, especially when it comes to you three. The traditional podcast charts are fairly secretive, and they are based on fairly limited data. The guys at Podicon created the Podport 100 because it factors all forms of social media, hashtagging, and really enlightens the fact that there is a conversation surrounding the podcast rather than just the data of how many people have actually downloaded it. So although people might be crushing it in the iTunes charts, lots of that happens for legacy downloads and you know, where you've got it left on subscribe and download and all that sort of stuff. And this is really building a bigger picture, which I'm sure they will get to, delivering all sorts of information over the next few years, I'm sure. You guys feature, in fact, you feature an awful lot. This is, well, you tell your story. I think the idea is that the people who are listening here are prospective podcasters, and of course, fans of your show and all of the other shows that seem to feature in our charts around the world. Tell your story from where you consider Midas Touch begins.
Touch begins in March. COVID hits our shores. Donald Trump responds to COVID consistent with his horrible management style for the preceding years, with devastating lies, disinformation, braggadociousness of him pretending that he knows everything. And we're sitting there all quarantined and saying there's a real existential crisis our country is facing. When we knew that before, but being in quarantine, you got to see it in a different way. And so we felt that we had to do something, because I think both for the country and for our mental sanity, as we were texting each other every night saying, what the hell is going on here? And so we created Midas Touch. Originally, we weren't sure what it was going to be. At first it started as kind of a blog. And at first, actually, we did some rudimentary kind of podcasts that not many people listened to or knew about. But then we transitioned into a political action committee when it was obvious that what we were doing most effectively was going after Trump with new style of political videos that people hadn't seen before, that kind of made political videos more like movie trailers, and we took out the kind of boring narration in old style political videos and used the juxtaposition of Donald Trump's own words against his actions to deprogram, deconstruct, deplatform, and show people the truth. And so we really stepped up big into the Twitter sphere of progressive, liberal, but now I just consider that all just to be really pro-democracy. And we kind of drowned out this fascist noise that was Trump's echo chamber on Twitter and socials. We increased our social following over time. Our political action committee that we created in May really took off. We were able to, spend lots of money in key states and swing states to help, swing the election, or we played a small part in that, helping swing the election for Joe Biden.
Let me stop you for a second. Look, I did a dive into you guys, obviously, when I knew I was going to speak to you. And I get your story, right? And I'm sure you verse it so well. You are so modest. It is ridiculous, because whether you realize it or not, you've gone from a conversation between brothers, and then you start using words like political action group. Like, hang on a minute, that doesn't just jump from one to another. And you're not spending some money, you're spending lots of money, and you're not just creating unseen political adverts. This is like genuinely never before seen changing stuff. This is like a whole new everything. So it's not like just trundling into oh yeah, we started doing stuff. I just can't. Every time I hear this story, I'm like, God, you're so ridiculously modest.
We saw a need, we saw a void that was kind of out there, and we saw pretty quickly that the videos that we were doing, whether we knew it or not at the time, were filling that void, and they started garnering a huge following. And like you, I mean, we didn't just jump from, let's make some videos and let's see what we could do to political action committee. The three of us didn't even know what a political action committee was. We were like, what does that even mean? What are the rules behind that? We were Googling it. We were calling everybody in the world that we know that had any sort of remote connection to the political world to ask them if that was the right decision. And it was almost like it was a scary kind of gap sort of time where we were like, okay, how do we take this to the next level? Is this the right move? And it turned out that was the total right move. It was the only move that could have allowed us to spend all that money with all of the rules that we have here in America with political advertising, and allowed us to, raise money to then do all the groundwork that we did throughout the elections in Georgia, and put up our billboards and get our ads on TV and fly planes and do any of the number of things that we ended up doing.
And so we have, so it's about 600 million views of our videos on Twitter alone since May, which is a pretty cool statistic. About a million,
outrageous.
About 1.5 million followers across our platforms, and all of those platforms are increasing. And in addition to the digital videos that we do online, we've done major national spends on TV. We've done digital billboards. We've done flyers. We've done mailers. We sent close to 5 million text messages between Georgia and the national campaign. We've done billboard bus tours. You name the type of advocacy, we've done it. And we've had great celebrity collaborations. Stevie Wonder, Bette Midler, Barbra Streisand, 9 Inch Nails have come to us, and we've kind of harnessed their creativity and made some great videos. But ultimately, as we moved into this next phase, we decided to reignite the podcast and to do it independently. During that process, we were approached by SiriusXM, and our show lived on SiriusXM Progress, for a little bit. We've had a great relationship with SiriusXM. We just wanted to try it on our own after that experience, because we just wanted to see we're creators at heart, and we like the control and the autonomy, and we like to just run things ourselves, and kind of create that artificial intelligence to make our podcasts better based on reactions. And so we decided to drop it independently. As we're recording this, we're about 5 podcasts in, and it's become one of the top podcasts now on the overall charts, on your charts, and news.
It's caught fire in six episodes. Six.
Something
Released
like
one
that.
today.
5 or 6.
5 or 6.
I feel like I'm always working on one now. I'm always recording a podcast. I could look it up.
Jordy, the launch of the podcast, we'll definitely get to that in a second. We could talk forever about how you got there in the first place thing. But Jordy, presumably, I mean, looking at the views we're all looking at, you're the editor?
No.
You're not.
All the technical editing, all of that fun stuff is Brett. He is.
I had no idea. So I presumed you were sitting in the dark room with the mic and then like.
I just like dark.
Jordy switched it up on you. He went into the dark room to like fool you. I think. I don't know what's going on. I just like
dark rooms.
Fair enough.
Brett's the technical editor. He's a wizard, man. I mean, you can't say enough about his skills. And the crazy thing about Brett's been editing since he's like 5. I'm not even kidding. He and Ben used to tag team videos growing up, and then Brett and I would tag team videos for school projects or whatever. And it's a skill that Brett's always had with him.
So, I mean, it was a perfect storm between the three of you, really, from what you guys all do professionally. Particularly, I'd imagine Ben from entering a particularly litigious space. I would imagine it was helpful having your brother around to look over that. How much of your legal time is now consumed with looking after Midas?
Enough, a lot. But I'm able to balance it, fairly.
I realize that might sound provocative from your other client's perspective. I don't mean that at all. I just meant like you're walking through a minefield and presumably you're the guy that knows where the mines are.
Yeah, we've gotten hit with a bunch of cease and desist type of letters that
I bet all the time.
And we get pushed back. We push back on them. And,
in fact, a lot of the people on the podcast charts with us have sent us cease and desist. Those conservative names.
Actually, just love them too. We just post them. We post them and laugh and send back.
You should run a wall of them in an office.
I like that. I have them. Honestly, some of them we just ignore. Just in case I ever want to go after somebody, I could make fun
you
of
can
them
start with it.
They're all just.
I mean, the only disappointment is that none of them actually sued us, because it's like sport for me. I would love for them to.
Yeah, I'm ready. Come on, let's do this.
Love to sue me. I could take your deposition, like all good. Like
take your deposition, make it into a podcast.
But also the way we sculpt the arguments, the way we approach Midas is kind of how a litigator would present a closing argument to a jury. And in a closing argument, it's about 90 minutes. We have about 2 minutes. But we utilize some of those same skill sets in how we present the case. We show you the evidence. We're provocative but we're very faithful to the truth, and we're showing you the video. So when you want to criticize the video, you're criticizing the words that are used by you. So
it's brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. It dodges this insane line between obviously political activism and as you say, this like epic movie feel, but at the same time obvious comedy. Like there's nothing funnier than watching someone trip themselves up, right? And you've been given this extraordinary arsenal full of just gaff after gaff after gaff that this guy says. You must be like, I found one today, boys. You're not going to believe what we're going to be able to do with this.
I gave us a lot of.
Have to. Yeah, I wish we didn't have to. I wish we didn't have to have all of that footage, but to your point, we do have an arsenal, and like we tell everyone, we keep all the receipts.
So there's this whole meta question, right? Surely you must be Trump fans in some way, on the basis that it has birthed the beginning of this. Presumably, this goes on now, right?
I'm going to say no, because like the destructive nature of Trump, I think, has so screwed up our country that I'd rather be doing something I'm less passionate about right now than all the people suffering in our country because of this evil monster and what he's unleashed on our country. And I'm grateful that Midas had an opportunity to do this and that we were able to rise to the gravity of the moment and create this political action committee and use our skills for good. I honestly wish I didn't have to. Like, it's really honestly upsetting on a daily basis, even currently, despite winning the election, just seeing all these people who have been so corrupted by Trump. Like, it genuinely upsets me, like, on a daily basis. Like, I love working with my brothers. I love making the videos and getting our message out there and inspiring people and stuff. I'm on a daily basis usually just generally like very upset because
yeah, like today we were talking about, there's this congresswoman from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and there was a video that was posted of the father of his daughter died in one of the horrible shooting massacres here. And the video is of this congresswoman basically stalking David Hogg, who's he's an anti-gun advocate because, you know, assault rifles were used in this massacre. And you have the congresswoman basically, you know, saying, is George Soros funding you? You know, you're a disgrace, you know, you're an actor, you know, and basically, you know, this, you know, David was at the school during the shooting. And
this was right after the shooting.
Right after the shooting, this woman who became a congresswoman is out there, you know, taunting one of the children, the high school students who was there, and calling him an actor. And she became a congresswoman now. And so it's just like, and then the Republicans, the leader said that he's going to have a conversation with her. Like, we need to have a talk with you about this. But like, there's just, how does that exist in the world? How does that exist, you know, in America? And just seeing a political party just become a conspiracy theorist, fascist party is really a scary thing.
Do you think you guys have created a blueprint that is going to be, you know, in anything creative, in anything media orientated, when a brilliant idea appears, you know, frequently it will be replicated everywhere? Are you going to see when the UK elections come around, are you going to see the Midas Touch UK kicking off? Or I don't necessarily even mean with you. Do you think you've created a format now that is going to be utilized as a means of genuine power to the people at a time when people were concerned that media was just out to trick them?
I hope we do. And I'll add that I hope that Midas, you know, is involved in global affairs in addition to just politics in the United States. I think what Ben said earlier about Midas Touch, not necessarily, you know, being a left, right, conservative, democratic movement, but a pro-democracy movement. I think that's important and allows us to use our skills and our style for like what's happening in Russia right now, or what may be happening in the UK soon with elections and whatnot. But I think, you know, you could, and I hope other groups do adapt, you know, things from us and what works and use it to their advantage, because, you know, I think people could learn a lot from it, and it's proven effective here. And I'd say, you know, you sort of see a lot of the groundwork that we laid already being replicated in a lot of ways already here in the United States by other groups, which is great. But you definitely see a lot of other groups doing videos that are, you know, I could look at and be like, that's a Midas video. You know, that's a Midas Touch video they just released. And but it's, you know, it's cool to see the influence spreading. And yeah, I mean, I hope everybody gets on the same page and just kind of fights, you know, as long as they're the good guys.
Fight the good fight, right?
Fighting for democracy. But I think, you know, our whole strategy and the reason why our videos resonate is because it's the truth. You know, I mean, it seems so farcical because it's so insane. Like you were saying before, like sometimes it almost seems just like funny because it's just so outrageous. But that's like the reality of the situation that we're living in, unfortunately. And so when, like Ben was saying, when we get an email from an angry Trump supporter that said, that video you did was disgusting, that was outrageous, I'm like, I literally just played the comments he's made about his daughter. Like literally the comments he's made about Ivanka. Like, I didn't make those up.
Yeah. Oh, you
like,
got
if
it.
You think
you
the videos,
it. Yeah, it is gross.
Yeah, if you think the video is disgusting, yeah, they're like halfway there. That video is gross. Because
yeah,
that's because,
come on.
Let's go.
I love it. Okay, so let me hit you with some Podboard stats that the guys have thrown at me. You were the number 4 highest news pod. That's where you've
Oh snap!
Which is
Guys.
extraordinary. When you consider we're talking about podcasts, right? So you've done 6 episodes. By the way, I caught Biden day 1 episode. What was that? 2 pods ago? And the audible exhale in the studio between the 3 of you, like, you know, it's easy when you're listening to it, especially from my perspective as a Brit. You know, I'm not directly in it, where I find the intrigue in the pod beforehand rather than the genuinely getting riled about the politics. And it was like a different show day 1. The build and the anticipation the day before, and then day 1 was just.
It lasted a real long time, James.
Sorry. It's all gone crazy.
It was a good day, and it was the culmination of all of our efforts, and obviously of a lot of fears and you know, scary moments that happened in the country leading up to it. It was the first time in our history that we didn't have a peaceful transfer of power, and so there were a lot of people on edge about how that day was going to go. And, you know, when it actually happened and we were able to see the fruits of our labor and of all the activists around the country, it was very gratifying. And then, of course, the Republicans are just the worst and have made the last few days, you know, just a reminder of why we have to keep fighting and why everyone needs to stay extremely active in everything we're doing.
So talking of that, you were in the whole of the US, your highest position thus far has been the 33rd most talked about converse podcast in all genres, forget just news. Your current episode, or the last one, is currently in at 68, but I think the refresh is about to happen once we've spoken, like in an hour, an hour or so. And the guys were telling me it's a shame you're doing this now because I think it'll break 33 tomorrow. So that whole number would have been higher. So it's gathering momentum. Although you get to do the horribly famous now mission accomplished bit, you know, this continues and people have an appetite for you guys now, which brings us squarely to the podcast that started 7 days ago, which when I deep dive, there was like 1 episode from October. And I was like, these guys are breaking all of the rules of the format. I'm supposed to interview you about, you know, regular podcasts and how important they are and all that sort of stuff. But we could explain it.
We could explain it away. We got an excuse for that one.
You called an emergency episode, right? 6, 7, 8 episodes ago. That was the first one.
Yeah. So like Ben alluded to earlier, we were releasing podcasts in a really rudimentary form, kind of from the very beginning of Midas. But they would typically been kind of just one-on-one, no plan, interviewing somebody for 20 minutes or so. And we created the podcast RSS feed and we would just throw them up. But we, you know, no one listened to the podcast at that time. It was, and we didn't even have, you know, many Midas followers at that time. But then when we started doing the shows with Sirius XM, we got in the flow of doing just a weekly show with the 3 of us brothers, which we had never done before. And so it allowed us to kind of figure out that on-air relationship and work it out and kind of the format of how a show works and how playing clips work and things like that. And we were doing the Sirius, what the, you know, when you look at the podcast app, it doesn't show, is that we were doing the Sirius show consistently every week. And those episodes are available on the Sirius XM app on demand. And then when our time with Sirius, when our contract was up with them, instead of re-upping for a new cycle, we decided, you know what, let's try to take it in-house. Like Ben said, let's see how much control we could have of it. So to your point, the consistency is incredibly important because since we've started, we've been doing 2 episodes a week we're getting released on the same days every single week. They come out on Tuesdays and Fridays for us at 6 a.m. Eastern time. And we just stay on that schedule. And the reason why you see the one from October is that was really just the one that I thought stood the test of time.
Right.
All the podcasts and was
worth coming back to.
It was Ben speaking about deprogramming with an expert who was in a cult previously. And obviously with all the QAnon and all the Trumpers now, it's learning about the psyche of cult behavior.
You've got 150 million Americans to reprogram, it seems like.
The funny thing about that podcast, though, is I had some weird technical difficulty on my Zoom where when I attached the mic to the Zoom, I guess I didn't do a refresh. My voice sounded like the voice from the movie Scream. So it was like, hello.
I forgot about that. That's
right. So I did this
and sent me the footage and he was like, yeah, I'm Ben. I was like,
but I did this 45-minute interview with the culty programming expert. And like that's the voice that I guess that's how she thought I sounded. You know, and so she didn't comment like what is that? And then when Brett heard it, he's like, what's going on? So Brett had to like adjust the pitch and anyway, that's the background of that one.
Brilliant.
That one we kept up, as Brett said, because I just think it's helpful for everybody to listen to. It's very raw. It's not like there's no like specific
polished
rhyme.
at all.
It's not polished, but it's really good information from this culty programming expert that people can utilize. So we just didn't want to take it down.
That you sound like you were talking to a cult expert in a synthesized voice. She must have thought she was like on the way back in.
Exactly.
The funny thing is, so Ben didn't know that his microphone sounded like that.
Yeah, for sure. So he's just going.
But before we did our first show on Sirius XM, we all got on with our producer at Sirius, and we're all talking, and Ben's voice was still like this. and Jordy and me and the producer were all kind of taking jabs at him, just making fun of him. And he had no idea that his voice was coming through weird. I thought he was joking. I thought he was purposely changing his voice as a joke to us. And then it took us all like an epiphany, like 10 minutes into the conversation that, oh, Ben doesn't mean to be, this isn't a prank.
How many legal consults had you done with that voice on a Zoom meeting?
Yeah.
It's a fantastic question.
I don't know. Well, no, it was only when I hooked up the microphone to it. That's what does it. Okay. The microphone, right?
So you guys, again, you all record remotely. COVID has sort of meant most people have, look, you work in traditional, I'm pointing like everyone can see that. You work in traditional broadcast media, right? The idea of putting out the quality that now seems to be acceptable was, you know, in January, if we'd recorded a Zoom call, this wouldn't go anywhere professionally, right? Like January 2020, I mean, God, that was a long time ago. Now this is the way, right? You record your show like this.
Yeah, we recorded just like this. And honestly, that was part of the impetus for us creating Midas Touch 2 was we were at a point when everything was shut down. We were watching the news and we were watching, you know, comedy programs, late night shows. And we realized everyone was doing their shows on Zoom. And we said for the first time, the playing field is like level for everybody, whether you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation or us, we could be releasing a product that's at the same quality level as CNN, as The Daily Show, and there's nothing stopping us from doing it. And so I think we took advantage of that opportunity definitely and ran with it. And yeah, I mean, it couldn't
not one person has complained about the quality, you know, zero. So, you know, and it's the same way we recorded at Sirius. It was just through this type of feed, and it's the same way everyone's really recording it. So
yeah, I find it amazing because look, I build studios. That's what we do here. We build sort of high-end video podcast studios so that people come in and record their shows and that type of stuff. For me, it had all been about building around quality, right? You want the highest definition, you want the most beautiful sound capture. We spend thousands and thousands of dollars on sound deadening in rooms, and now I'm talking to you 3 feet away from a fridge on a sketchy microphone, you know, in a room that is full of toys and stuff, and no one cares. Like now it's more about information. Have you got on with? Forgotten what the app's called. Clubhouse.
So I haven't even told my brother the app Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Someone just slipped me a Clubhouse invite, actually. So I'm on Clubhouse, but I don't know if Jordan.
I was on Clubhouse. I was on Clubhouse before you, so it's all right.
I don't.
And he didn't invite you.
And he didn't invite me, but I guess I didn't invite him either. So it goes both ways. I still have no idea what it is, but I have it, and I was invited into it. Jordan, if you want an invite, I still have 5 invites to go.
I think it will be an extraordinary medium for you guys. Extraordinary medium because it is.
So it's
start
like
a room.
Voice. It's like voice chats, right? Instead of like group
It's
message
like live
chats.
disposable podcasts. That's the best way I can describe it. And it is a meeting of some of the most incredible voices in people that you would never expect to find on there. And particularly for activism, it's an extraordinary resource because it's real, it's live. I feel like you guys will vibe off of it massively.
I love it. And I think,
love it.
by
I'll
the way,
see
this
that.
is one of the things that I think helps Midas be Midas is we're super nimble, right? We don't pretend to be anything that we're not. And we're always looking to learn and figure out how we can amplify the voice even more. So we'll never sit there and sort of overthink a situation. So even something like this that, yeah, well, I admit I haven't heard of it, but now I'm excited and I can't wait to dig into that.
Jordy, you are fan favorite, right?
much to the
According to
chagrin
the
of
online polls.
Ben and Brett. There was one Twitter poll. It's actually a really sensitive subject for the brothers at the moment.
Oh, is it really? Sorry.
No.
Well, it's interesting because I have the most followers, and then Brett has the second most followers, and Jordy hasn't broke 100,000. But
Right. Here's the lawyer coming out with some facts. Just to keep
Here's
it
he's
down,
got.
Jordy.
Jordy's
Don't worry
got.
about it.
Jordy's got a smaller but very passionate fan base.
Right.
Ben
Okay.
and- but
You
Ben and I,
guys-
you know,
Fight
just
together.
more popularity with me and Ben, I guess.
You're obviously close as a group, right? Is that has that always been like? Are you those brothers that all grew up together, proper brothers, constantly in each other's faces?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only thing separating us, age and just life and distance and things, like when Ben's 5 years older than me, so he went off to college 5 years before I did, and and Jordy's 3 years younger than me. So aside from like those sorts of things, yeah, I mean, we're always very close and always kind of discussed more like in theory ways that we could work together. And before the pandemic, one of the things that Jordy and I would frequently discuss is, should we start a production company? Like, what should we do? Should we make commercials? Should we do music videos? But it all just felt very like intangible in a way, like, because we didn't fully know, like, okay, if we wanted to start doing music videos like tomorrow, like what bands are we going to do? Like, is there like, are we just going to start reaching out to people? And like, how's that going to work? Are we going to just, we just couldn't quite figure it out. But this kind of fell into our laps by necessity, just because we were all just so infuriated and upset by everything going on. It was really the most organic thing. And I think because of that, it's never really felt like a business to me. Like I work on this, and I would say all of us work on this when I don't want to get Ben in trouble with his clients around about 24/7. But I'm never like, oh, I got to do a video, for whatever, or oh, I got to record a podcast. I'm always like, okay, what are we talking about on the podcast? Like, who are we talking to? I'm excited. Like, let's do it, And so I think that's important too.
I think the key thing is that just you have to be very specialized in an area that you're really passionate about. If you just even look outside of Midas, like I think the brands and the companies that thrive, like if you're basketball, you got to give people like the most iconic basketball content and really love it and focus on middle school and high school and have all these different takes about it. And so there are great companies in basketball. There are great companies with football. There are great companies with cooking. There are great companies that do memes. I mean, honestly, the Podport is an incredible idea. I'm not just saying it because we're interviewing. You have Billboard, you have all of these kind of companies that do rankings, but leaning in, it's very niche and unique, and tracking up and coming podcasters and having interviews and having a unique proprietary ranking system, and then going all in on it is kind of that idea that that pops. And along the way, we've had a lot of, it wasn't overnight. We started with 0 followers. When we had 300 followers, we'd have people message us and say, a news website with 300 followers, like, get out of here.
We have some of those saved.
Yeah, we started with 1 retweet, 3 likes, and the retweet would probably be me on a burner account, just trying to get some likes. And then just over time, we didn't buy followers. It was starting with 0 and then earning 5 and 15 and 50 and 100. And then it was kind of building this very loyal group that started around us, who we call the Midas Mighty. which is now like the broader fan base. And when you think about it, in music, in superstar artists, they or athletes or actresses, they have like a group sometimes, right? They're called the, for Lady Gaga, the Monsters, and for people, and so we had this great group who was out there, and they were inspired by our message, and then they were telling others to kind of be inspired by the message. And we've always been very true to them. And Jordy's always interacting and communicating with them because they're the base. Without them, there are a lot of people who like listening to the podcast, but there's a core group who are out there constantly advocating for us. And that's
all jokes aside, I think that's why Jordy's probably the fan favorite, because from early on, Jordy was, very keen on interacting with every single person who interacted with us, developing relationships with people, real relationships with people, like checking in on them, like, just really making them feel a part of the process. And so, I think, aside from Jordy's good looks, I think that's probably why he's the fan favorite, because he's cultivated and developed these relationships with the Mighty, who, Jordan helped kind of coin that phrase as well. From really, really day one. I remember, Jordy would always nudge me and Ben, like, interact with people from your personal accounts. And I'm like, Jordy, I'm running the Midas Touch account every second of the day. I want to, but like, I'm tired.
Jordy, when you were doing this stuff, when you started at the beginning, and you talk about that slow ramp up when you had 300 followers, obviously at that point, the dauntingest of all the jobs is the marketing one, is the guy sitting there going, how do we get people to actually listen and take notice of this? Was there a point where you were like, oh guys, this one's just caught fire, hang tight, my job's just got easier?
Well, I think with all of us, and I just want to go back to what Brett was talking about in a second, but I think with all of us, as far as the marketing goes of it, I'm technically the marketing guy, right? That's my expertise and that's my experience for the last 8 or 9 years in New York. But it's every decision is made with the brothers. Now, that's not to say that we get held up overthinking things. I think one of the good things about us is, it's literally just us three. So we're super nimble and we're able to act on things pretty quickly. And like Ben said earlier also is, we're all creative, we're all creative people at heart. And so we just try and find the best ways to really pump things up. And as far as interacting with people, I just want to echo one of Brett's points is none of the relationships that I've, formed are artificial. They're all genuinely authentic. And I have a deep care for, the Midas Mighty and these folks who I'm interacting with on a daily basis, because we share a common mission. And, that mission is pro-democracy. So I genuinely love, checking in on my people throughout the day. And hopefully they feel the same way about me.
We kind of, at some point we hit a formula that worked though, where we would release the videos, they'd have a hashtag. We would release them and kind of rally the troops to rally behind the video. And then there was a group of people who we knew loved the product, who would kind of help push it and help distribute, it to, deeper kind of followings. And then, we kind of hit a stride where consistently, if we weren't hitting 1 million views a video, that would be an unsuccessful video. When you think about marketers, it's like if they spent tens of millions of dollars and got 1 million views on a video, that would be, a huge success. And for us, our budget was shoestring, like literally, like sometimes like $100.
Like, what can you do, Brett?
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. Yeah.
We would just have to, literally the budget would be paying the licensing fee for some audio tracks behind it. That would be the video budget. And if we didn't hit 1 million views on a video, we would be like, what do we do wrong here? What isn't connecting? And then we would just do 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, 5 million. And they would just, take
those are the ones. So when it went from 1 million to 5, do you remember like the first time it got big? I don't mean like, 1 million is obviously big when you've had 100,000, and 100,000 is big when you've had 100. But when was the first one that you were like, this is?
Well, I think there was a few early hits though that right away kind of caught fire. But you see people who go viral and then that's it. So we did this video called "Are You Trump the Snake?" And it was, using Donald Trump's speech about a snake who a woman took in, and then the snake, bites her. And then we did this video using Ronald Reagan's speech, "Are You Better Off?" And those got a million plus. Well, "Are You Better Off" got 1 million views after about probably 10 days, which that was cool. And then Trump the Snake got like 500,000 views. And then some of them got like 250, 300. And then we kind of built the formula. And I would say by July, because that's when we did what's called the Founding Members Program, where people basically, helped contribute and they got founding members certificates. But right around that time, we jumped from like 60, 70,000 followers right away to 176,000 followers. And then from there, it was fairly exponential.
It sort of looks after itself at that point, presumably. Like you've got your momentum, if you like. And
there are kind of points where you could hit these ceilings that you then kind of have to assess and evaluate. What do I need to do to then kind of get to the head
plateau? But one of the things early on that was something we had to overcome as well was, we knew people liked the "Are You Better Off" video. We knew people liked the snake video, but it was like, okay, how do we make people know that these are all Midas Touch videos? Like when it comes across their timeline, how do they know, oh, this video was done by the same one as the video I saw last time? And that just came with, us being really transparent with who we are, us telling our story and getting people to know us having our branding on every video in the same way with our logo on one side, the hashtag on one side, and just this consistency and the quantity of videos that we kept putting out. It drilled it in their heads. And so people ultimately realized, when they saw a video that, oh, it's a Midas Touch video. Oh, it's the brothers. Oh, Brett, Jordy, and Ben. And so they gradually became more and more personal, which I think was a really important part of people getting to know us and people kind of joining the movement.
You talk about those early on followers, the sort of core group that got you going, that every time you put something out, they were reposting it. Every time you did anything, they were giving you traction. It's something I try and explain all the time. Those people, they're the real fire starters, right? They're the ones that keep you going. When you've got 100 followers and you're seeing 30-40% engagement from 100,
yeah,
I wish people could understand more that to creators, those people are so important. To have fans early on that stick by your work and push it out there is so big,
so important. And we're in kind of Twitter rooms with a lot of those people, and we chat with them every single day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that a lot of them has said to us as to, when we asked like, hey, why do you, why are you such a big Midas Touch fan? They say, I watched this group of videos and that group of videos and that group of videos, and they were all good. But, when I commented on your video, you guys actually got back to me and we had a dialogue and a conversation. And so, sometimes it's as simple as that, being the ones who just go that extra step to, appreciate the people who are supporting you in that way. And we try to do things for all of our followers as much as we can. And most recently we sent out holiday cards to every single person who donated, whether they donated 50 cents or whether they donated,
how many cards?
A lot of cards, a lot of cards.
Wow.
Over 100,000.
Yeah.
100,000.
A lot of cards, but people really like them. And so, we try to give it that little personal touch. It was a letter that the three of us wrote together. It had a cartoon picture of us on it. And some of the comments are funny.
I mean, your brothers. Is there a brothers handshake? I feel like there's a secret Midas. You need to make one.
No brothers handshake. I like the people who said to us though, like, my husband was very concerned when I got a card from with a picture of three guys.
Brilliant.
Well, look, when someone listens, one of the most incredible things when I see these numbers of people listening to the podcast, which I don't take for granted, is like, that person just spent an hour to an hour and 30 minutes of their day and their life, like listening to us talk about things. And like, they could have spent that hour and a half, like doing a lot of other things other than listening to us. And so when we create these, we spend a lot of time though making sure it's the right guest, making sure we're prepared, and making sure that we've put 100% into it, regardless of everything, going into it. And I just think that, for any kind of podcaster, there's a lot of, you have to differentiate yourself when you're doing it. You have to be prepared, and you have to be really passionate about what you're talking about. You can't just fake it. And if it's a topic that you're not interested in, but you think, hey, if I go into this topic, maybe people like it, don't do that topic. Like, even if there are things that are like super unique that you're interested, like if you're interested in like drinking boba, I don't know, there's a boba place that opened up down the block, but like you do a podcast on boba, but be the biggest boba expert in the world and talk about it in a way that nobody knows boba. And I bet you anybody could create the boba podcast, create a boba social, and make the boba the biggest, like you could be the boba person. But like whatever it is, you have to be so passionate about it. You have to breathe, you have to wake up wanting to do it.
You guys obviously exude that from you. You can hear it in the episodes, any interviews, including this one. It's so obviously just emanates from you. You talk about the structure of putting that show together, being prepared, all of that type of stuff. What does your sort of pre-show to show look like? How, who do you write the show? Do you write yourself bullet notes? Do you collaborate? Do you each write your own notes?
Yeah,
you go, Brett.
Sure. The show basically starts in its early forms in our text message chains, where we start sending each other back and forth kind of news articles and tweets and, things that we want to hit on, video clips. And then that usually evolves. We don't try to put anything from there to paper until about the night or the day of, because the news cycle is just so fast, crazy that we could be talking about something and it's not even relevant. So we want to try to keep the show as relevant as possible. But then we'll make a Google Doc, and we'll start beating out the segments and figure out, okay, when we kick off the show, what do we want to start talking about? What are kind of the overarching themes of the episode? We try to kind of work the segments into kind of different themes. Is it, the Republicans in, chaos, like that could be a theme. And what are all the examples that we were discussing about the Republican chaos happening? What about Republicans and domestic terrorism? Like, what about Joe Biden's accomplishments from this week? And we sort of map it all out at that point with bullet points and screenshots. If there are any sort of tweets we want in there, we pull the video clips that are relevant, and we make a note next to each segment, what clips we have accessible, and we cut them down to the right moments that we want to use. And that's
so then once we're on, we have bullet points, and then we're just freestyling. Once we have the general
it's not a script. We come very prepared. We make a pretty in-depth outline as far as these shows go. We always want to be prepared, but when the show comes on, there are things that we're going to talk about that are on there. We might veer off and into something that is not even on there. And so it's kind of just the nature of the show kind of takes on its own life.
Do you think, your serious stuff is basically podcasting, right? You recorded it in the same manner as which you do.
Same exact thing. The only difference being obviously that it, in addition to living on demand on the SiriusXM app, it also aired throughout the week on the SiriusXM radio channel. And it also, we had time constraints. So, we would record at the same time every week. We'd be constrained by, this segment is this many minutes long, the show needs to be done at this specific time. And the way we do it now, we try to have the finished show land at around an hour 10. But sometimes it might go a little before, sometimes it might be an hour 30. It depends, but we're not constrained by that. And our flexibility now also allows us to get guests, more guests, because we don't have to say, are you available Thursday at 11 o'clock? But we could say, whenever you're available on Thursday, like we'll work our schedule around to accommodate, you being on our show. And so that allows us to get, higher profile guests. And so, recently we had Deborah Messing, actress, social justice advocate Deborah Messing on the show. We had Beto O'Rourke.
Hold on, you had Trump's cousin.
We had Mary Trump,
Yeah.
who, is a very outspoken critic of her uncle. And
that show was amazing. That was an amazing bit of broadcast at the time, especially when it went out. It was extraordinary.
And when you watch, though, the CNBCs, the MSNBCs, CNNs, Fox News, even, there's all a certain, they approach it a certain way. Even some of the other political podcasts do it in kind of a wonky political way. And our whole approach is that, like, these are the questions that you'd want to ask these people if they were in your living room. And we're going to talk the way you would talk. And we're not going to talk like we're, ivory tower academics or politicians, or we just want to know what's up. And, and then we could have fun with the guests, like with Deborah Messing. We had this joke where I did this impression and asked her to be Lucy, and I would be Ricky from I Love Lucy. And that turned out great. Everybody loved it. It was a big hit.
It was amazing. It was amazing. So look, your whole thing only really works in new age broadcast media. You could never do it on TV. You could never do it, as you said, on radio. Time constraints, etc., etc. Do you, as this evolves, and we just talked about the Clubhouse thing. Presumably, that will be something that will blow up over the next period. But do you think this just allows authenticity to shine through, and therefore you get, because it's you guys, they know you're brothers. There's not this huge bundled corporation behind you. No one doubts your motives. Nobody can look at you and be like, you've been bought, or anyone's poking you in any particular direction. And then you go to the podcast and you listen to as you say, however long it goes, it only ever sounds like a conversation. I feel like I know you guys long before I got on this call with you, because I feel like I've sat as a fly on the wall listening to you chat for hours. What, do you think that adds a depth that is otherwise unavailable with traditional stuff?
I think it comes down to the authenticity that Ben and Jordy were talking about, and the concept that we don't try to be anybody who we're not when we're on the podcast or otherwise. We've never, gone out there and said, we are, the biggest political experts and we know every little thing about, politics and how Congress works and every little, like, we're not going to pretend to be those people, because we're not. We'd fall flat on our faces. But we're, three brothers who were upset with the state of things, and we learn kind of along with everybody else. We're not expert podcasters.
But you are now.
Now we're, in cred number 4 on the charts. I mean, what are you going to do?
It's going to climb. It's going to climb.
The depth, though, and the layers and the vulnerability, though, allowing people, opening up and allowing people to see us is, I think, a real driving force, because there's a few things going on at the same time in the podcast. Like, we're giving you all of this news. You're learning about Midas Touch and what we're doing. And then there's kind of the travails of the brothers. Each 3 of those could probably be its own podcast in its own lane, but those 3 layers all happening at the same time. And a lot of that comes with opening up and being honest and sharing kind of personal stories and, and just letting people know who we are. And I think that a lot of podcasters who I see who don't open up authentically, like, you can tell that they're bullshitting you or they're playing a part. And I think no one in 2021 anymore, which is the changing media, like, no one wants that. No one wants a snake oil salesman selling them shit anymore. Though you can still get that, but, like, you're not coming to a podcast to again go back into existing echo chambers of political discourse. You want something different.
That's what long form forces, right? Because you can only keep that mask up for whoever you are, however good you are at it. After half hour, you're pretty much, someone's going to clock you. It doesn't matter how good you are at keeping it up.
And don't try to be perfect. Like, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't say, don't make excuses. It's so easy to make excuses. I would podcast, but my microphone isn't good enough. And, just do it. Just do it, get it out. If it doesn't work, figure out why it didn't work, tweak things until it does work. I mean, that's what we did with our videos. That's what we did with anything. If we made, the snake video, for example, and if we sat on it for, a month and ran it by everybody we knew and asked for opinions and said, but what if we tweak this shot to that shot? It would have never gotten out there. And maybe someone would have beat us to the punch. Maybe there'd be a different kind of, company doing what I don't know. But the fact that
maybe a Trump orientated version of you would have come to prominence first.
Maybe don't strive for perfection, strive to make the best quality product you can, try to pump out as much content at that quality level that you can, and, adjust from there, tweak as needed. And I think that's one of the things that's been helpful also with us bringing the podcast in-house like we did, is being able to see, the listener counts, the subscriber counts, the pod charts numbers and stuff. It helps us figure out, okay, this worked on that episode. This didn't work on this episode. What if we did this again on this episode? And it allows us to keep kind of pressing at that until it's perfected. And every show, I think we're kind of perfecting it, a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. And look, I hope we get to stay in touch over this process, because you're no doubt going to continue the assault on the charts. And I think what you're going to start to find, because it's so infantile in the sort of standard podcast directory, your re-listen stats are going to become amazing, partly because of your whole political and but I think people are really interested in the relationship of the brothers. Like, there's that storyline there as well. When's the Midas movie? When's that happening?
Jordy?
We're back pocketing that one for now.
Come on. It's so easy. Or at least a TV show, right? There's sort of an entourage style brothers type of thing that you can get going.
With the pandemic, it would be pretty boring. It would be Brett and that
on Zoom.
The funniest questions to me that I get are like, during the election, people would be like, your life right now must be so nuts. And I'm like, you want to FaceTime me?
Yeah.
I have a exercise bike in the room, which I ride occasionally. I am in this 5x5 box, and I don't really leave it. So if that's fun, if that's excitement for you, it's not going to make it the best show in the world. But Netflix, if you want to come and give us a show, we'll figure something out. We'll make it more.
Maybe Brett gets on the bike during the Zoom.
Yeah. Ben, you're working though. Ben, you are working normal, right?
Yeah, I mean, not normal. I mean, as normal as a kid. Like, most of my hearings as a lawyer are by Zoom or
with crazy alien voice on.
Exactly. Only when I have the microphone does it go crazy. Voice. But I mean, it's definitely not normal. But I'm working a full-time law job, and and seeing virtually clients and all that.
So for now, at least, the episodes are going to keep on coming. I feel like I should have teed this up at the beginning. In fact, I will pre-record it in an intro, but definitely the first place to start, I think, before you check out the pod even, is go and check out some of those early videos, because they really frame up the monster that subsequently grew. And the pod is available. You release twice a week now, right?
Twice a week. So it comes out every Tuesday and Friday. You can listen to the MeidasTouch Podcast anywhere you get podcasts.
Done like a pro. Guys, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. And I hope we can...
Thank you so much for having us. Love that we get to speak to across the world. And I hope you don't look at us like we're like our country, like we're just insane people.
I mean, if you've seen what's going on outside my front door at the moment, we are in no better position. Well, slightly. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great day. I'll keep these stats getting dropped to you from the office in Sweden. I'll make sure they keep sending them through.
Please keep us posted and let us know how we can help you guys out.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Great work. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.